Hi everyone, this is episode number 8, and today we're going to have an interesting conversation with a lawyer. Uh, and this is the lawyer in front of me.
Hello, hi. Thank
Hello,
you so much
Celin.
for having me.
So, Celin, we understand that you are a lawyer in a specific field, right? Like which is Posh Consult. Which handles prevention of sexual harassment. That is predominantly the area that you focus on.
So, I am basically a lawyer
Okay.
and I handle different kinds of cases matrimonial, criminal, administrative, constitutional law,
Okay.
representing rights of people across different tribunals, commission, courts, all kinds of forums, judicial forums primarily. But I also am what people popularly call as posh consultant in our
Okay.
country.
Mhm.
So the word posh, I mean, it's basically an abbreviation. That particular word was coined when the bill was being mooted in the parliament. So back then it was protection of women against sexual harassment. That's how the abbreviation posh came about.
Mhm.
But the act and the bill have a it has a very lengthy name. It's Sexual Harassment at Workplace in bracket Prevention, Protection, and Redressal Act of 2013,
Mhm.
and it also has central government rules of 2013. So typically in our country, posh consultant or a posh consultancy or posh compliance, these are the popular phrases and terminologies being used, especially when you try to make your workplace more compliant to the act, to the regulations, the anti-sexual harassment laws, as well as creating a more safe work environment for everyone.
Okay, that's very interesting.
So, in addition to being a lawyer, I am also a consultant in this area.
Okay.
I prefer the title gender consultant
Okay.
because this is also an aspect when, especially with respect to the act itself, it is not a gender neutral act.
Mhm.
In our country, Sexual Harassment at Workplace Act is more meant to protect aggrieved women. And there are UGC guidelines, which has a slightly broader area wherein the complainant can be of any gender, so long as they are a student.
Okay.
So the UGC guidelines of 2015, I'm talking about more specifically. But
Mhm.
otherwise, the abbreviated POSH Act of 2013 and the central government rules, they are very clear that the complainant can only be an aggrieved woman.
Okay.
However, the respondent can belong to any gender.
Mhm. So we are stressing on you would be able to, as a client, anybody who has a harassment case. It's not only females; it's also men. If they have anything at their workplace,
Hmm.
also outside the workplace, isn't it? That is the scope of
So,
your work.
very specifically, the act is very clear. It is sexual harassment at workplace.
Okay.
So the definition of workplace is very clearly given in the act.
Mhm.
And when we say workplace, it's not always the office space. It can be a virtual space as well.
Okay.
I mean, during COVID, you would have seen that most of the people were working from home, especially in an IT company or in a BPO and all that. So, and also several classes were being held online as well for universities, colleges, and schools. So that also becomes a workspace.
So even educational institutions are
Absolutely.
considered.
That's how you have UGC guidelines for colleges, institutions, for
Okay.
higher education, higher learning. And this particular act defines workplace very clearly, not just the office space, like I mentioned,
Mhm.
but also the virtual space where you're discussing work and also when you're traveling
Mhm.
through work.
Mhm.
So it can be even an airplane. You may be traveling with your colleague in that.
Right.
If a harassment happens, primarily because you both were traveling towards a place where you're supposed to do some work, so that flight also becomes a workplace automatically.
Oh, so even like if on a project, two colleagues are going. Okay.
Exactly. If they are even an off-site event for
Mm.
that matter, which is organized by the company,
Mm, mm,
I know it is to create team bonding and recreational purpose, but
mhm.
it is still done by the organization. It automatically becomes a workplace.
Anybody who has been harassed, who felt harassed under the education, their educational institution or any form of
Any
workplace.
workplace.
Mhm.
So the thing is, it's not just restricted to companies which are registered under the 1956 or 2013 act with the ROC. It's not just that.
Okay.
It can be even a not-for-profit organization like an NGO
Okay.
or an association.
Mhm.
Okay. Or it can be even organizations where there is a collective. Like, for example, I've heard the latest case that I heard was of a club, and
Hmm.
I'm not talking about a nightclub or a health club.
Okay.
So these are clubs for socializing, or which have got a mixed collection of activities. They have gyms, they have libraries, they have banquets, hotels,
Hmm.
and they give it for several purposes
Hmm.
to their members primarily.
Hmm.
So there also this act will be applicable because it has a set of dedicated employees working there.
Okay.
And the number that is required for any organization to become compliant is 10 and above.
Hmm.
So if you have 10 and above employees, irrespective of whether there are women there or not,
Hmm.
you're supposed to have an IC in place. And IC is the internal committee which will be receiving the complaint and redressing it.
Okay.
That is what the law says.
So, when someone comes to you and approaches you, and are there any cases where you would straight away say that this doesn't come under my jurisdiction? Or
I will answer that question, but first I need to offer a clarification.
okay.
See, it's not just somebody with a degree in LLB or a lawyer who is going to do this kind of work,
Right.
Posh consultancy or gender consultancy. Anyone with a background of gender studies, or who has been a social worker, somebody who is familiar with feminist issues, because I've seen a lot of external members who are basically social workers, activists, and feminists primarily. Not always there is a lawyer. You rarely see lawyers, in fact.
Right.
But these are the people who are part of the IC as external members, and many of them are also consultants. Okay. So it is not necessary that you have to be a lawyer or somebody with a legal professional degree, because but yes, it does have an advantage. I'm not going to deny that. Because when someone comes to me who has been troubled at workplace, I always tell them the most confidential and the most cheapest and the most quickest remedy you can find is in your organization itself through the IC, provided there is an IC. But that's where the sad part is. Most of the organizations are not compliant. They don't have an IC. They don't have an anti-sexual harassment policy. That's where the problem begins.
Okay.
Now, if suppose an employee faces something like this, is been sexually harassed, but is unable to address it because there is no system in place in the organization, what will they do? The very first thing they can do is they'll have to go to the police, or I typically suggest them to also go to Women's Commission, because with police you can have it's like a mixed bucket of experience for people.
Is there an equivalent for Women's Commission for men?
So every
because we're talking about gender equality.
So I'll give you options. Okay, so if you are sexually harassed, and if you are not a woman with respect to your gender, then in your organization itself will have something called as business code of conduct, okay, or employees code of conduct, in which typically those are the HR policies wherein sexual harassment will not be tolerated. Most of the time those policies are gender neutral, okay, because it is applicable for every employee. So if a man is harassed at work, he can definitely level a complaint. It won't come to the IC, but it will go to the HR or whichever is whatever committee they have formed under that particular code of conduct, employees code of conduct or business code of conduct. So at that point also they can level a complaint. A lot of companies have that.
Okay.
So there is already a system in place. What is the real question is, there is no particular research or statistics that has been done to for me to tell you that these many number of cases have come, because most of it is private and confidential. So they will not reveal the numbers. Okay.
Which is kind of bad on their name, isn't it? Is that the reason? Or?
Not always. Okay, it's not done from the PR or branding perspective. It is more to protect the people.
Got it.
The employees.
That is the intention behind it.
Because not always when a complaint is preferred, until and unless a person is, there is a proper investigation or a proper inquiry, you cannot say who is really guilty. Because there are couple of complaints wherein it was either inconclusive or we realized it was a false complaint. That also has happened.
Yeah. So you said that there are companies which has the internal committee and there aren't some of them, right? So the first check, when you must be having the ICs, their rules must be same, right? Like they must be having some guidelines or principles based on which they
Absolutely.
work
The
across.
policy is the one that helps them.
Hmm.
Somebody comes to me, whether it is the complainant or a witness or even a respondent,
Mm.
when they approach me because their company already has an IC and they've received a notice and a summon,
Huh.
they're not coming to me because I'm a consultant.
Got
They're
it.
coming to me because I'm a lawyer and they need legal support.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, they need legal advice and consultation.
Mhm.
Now,
But
the
as compared to the other case where
again seeking help from me as a lawyer because they want to know where else can they go
Mm.
because there's no IC in place. And see, sometimes it is the members of the IC also,
Mm.
who against whom the complaint can be,
Wow.
and also the senior management.
Mhm.
So what will you do then? The avenue is different.
Mhm.
There is something called as a local complaints committee or LC,
Mhm.
local committee, which is at the district level. That's
Mhm.
where you need to prefer your complaint. Now, in the state of Karnataka, you have to route your complaint through the Women's Commission.
Mm.
So you will have to address a complaint there, and from there it will go to the LC,
Mm.
and there they will go through the complaint, and there is a small period where they will be vetting the complaint,
Mm.
and thereafter the notices and summons will go.
Mhm. Okay.
And in organizations, companies where IC is there, along with other committees also, which are looking into different kinds of issues, like for example, sexual discrimination is not sexual harassment.
What is the difference?
So sexual harassment is basically an act that is done. It could be even through body language. It
Okay.
could be through like the conduct of the person.
Mm.
It could be verbal. It could be even physical advance. It could even be a form of a favor that is sought.
Mm.
Quid pro quo or
Mm.
something. You do this, I do
I
this
got
for you. Like that. So there are multiple forms of sexual
These
harassment.
all come under harassment category, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. It is primarily sexual in nature, which also leads to hostile work environment, making it very difficult for the aggrieved person to continue working in that organization. But sexual discrimination is more about, why a person was not promoted mainly because they belong to a particular gender.
Okay. Mm.
Okay, and this person is not treated equally at par to somebody at the same level or the same paycheck and all that.
Mhm.
Sometimes if, in fact, even pay parity comes under sexual discrimination.
Okay.
A woman may get paid lesser than a man and all that for the same role,
Mm.
having the same qualification, same experience.
Mhm.
So sexual discrimination is different.
Mm.
Sexual harassment is different.
So if I'm reading between the lines, it's like when someone is having, it's based on the intention, right? So someone is approaching another human being with the intention of some kind of advantage over them, then it's kind of harassment. Whereas you have something like you based on the gender. I'm going to say that you're a male or you are a female. For that reason, I'm not going to give you the same treatment as someone else. That intention is discrimination.
So in India, it is very much mixed.
Mm.
Because let's say a respondent, and I'm going to use the popular gender, the
Mm.
man,
Okay.
if he is treating a woman employee in a certain manner, it is quite possible at the level of the pathology. I mean, if you're trying to analyze that person's behavior, then it may also be because they consider women inferior,
Mhm.
and they feel therefore she's gullible and
Mm.
vulnerable, and you can do whatever you want. She
Mm.
will not complain. you
Mm.
know so and also it's not always a person who's an authority who does this.
Right.
Can be somebody at your level,
Mm.
somebody who is junior to you, somebody who is visiting the company for work.
Right.
Could be an intern and a trainee also.
Mm.
It could be a vendor. In
Mm.
fact, one of the inquiries that I was an external member to, I saw it was a vendor resource who had harassed the complainant. So the biggest hunt was to find out who this guy is,
Oh,
because he's not on the employee payrolls of that particular organization.
got it.
This person was a vendor. So we couldn't find the data on this person.
Mm.
We had to literally hunt him down through a CCTV footage.
Wow.
So all those challenges are also there.
In this kind of cases, which I mean, even the vendor organization should be having that IC, right? Like, I mean, for you to, or is it like you would have one IC and then from there you can map to.
Let me tell you, if the respondent or the complainant belongs to a different organization,
Mm.
The law is a little bit gray in this area. So typically, we always give an upper hand to the complainant. We see the comfort of the complainant and the convenience of the complainant. Now, in this particular inquiry that I was a part of, the complainant was a student, a lady student. So we were not willing to let her go to the vendor resource company and ask her to undergo, an inquiry there. Hey, we wanted to protect her interest.
Okay.
And again, it is quite possible she could have dropped the complaint itself if we had to ask her to go there. Okay. Now, the thing is, if the vendor resource is the respondent, we reached out in this particular case, this inquiry, we reached out to the company. They said that we are okay if he undergoes the inquiry at your institution. We are hoping that it will be a fair inquiry. It was a fair inquiry because he was caught red-handed on the CCTV footage. So there was, there was no denial on the kind of evidence that we had.
Right.
But when we were conducting the inquiry session with the respondent, what we got to know is that he is not at all aware of sexual harassment at workplace.
Okay.
He doesn't know what is an IC. So one thing was very clear, that his institution does not have an IC. They don't have a policy in place. So when the inquiry report was being drafted, one of the suggestions I gave to them was that please don't hire vendors who do not even have a policy in place. In this particular incident, if the respondent had not participated upon the insistence of the vendor resource company, what will you do? That girl and the parents will go to the media, will go to the police. How will you try to cover up that particular media crisis? How will you deal with it? And what is the message you're sending to the world? Okay, women are not safe in our organization. Yeah. Right? That's the message you're sending across, right? That's what anyone who's listening to a news will think about it.
Right.
That's how they will receive it. And mainly it is the parents who take decisions, where the child is going to study or whatever. Because this was an academic institution.
For us to let them know that this is all coming under harassment and they can reach out to someone like you. What are those coming under that umbrella?
So what is sexual harassment is also very clearly defined in the law. In fact, before the Posh Act, we already had the Vishaka guidelines, which were given out by the Supreme Court. Okay, so they also had defined what constitutes sexual harassment very clearly. It is mainly, any conduct or any physical advance which is of sexual nature, any demand or favor that you're seeking. And also, it is not necessary it has to be done when a person is in physical contact with another. Okay, there can be distance also. You're verbally demanding something.
Mobile. Okay.
You can use mobile phones. You can make a WhatsApp call, audio call, video call, whatever it is. You are using your company resources like Microsoft Team or Google Meet or something like that to harass someone. Okay, so all those, it can be a virtual harassment also, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
Like this one interesting case that we had was wherein this lady said that this person is stalking me. And we asked her, how is he following you? Where is he? She's like, no, I've been repeatedly getting his requests under different names on Instagram and Facebook. But that is harassment.
Someone has a lot of time to do all this.
Yeah, somebody is very determined to persevere it. I don't want to, I'm just trying to tone it down a little bit. It was serious. She stopped coming to work because of that.
Okay.
That's when her supervisor took it up as to why she's not coming to work. Okay. So that's when all of this came out. So, and then she was encouraged to report and make a formal complaint about it. So let me also tell you, with respect to penalty in this act, the highest penalty is termination of employment.
That's the highest.
That is the highest thing you can do.
Okay.
Now, if the complainant wants something more, then meaning a severe penalty, you should ideally go under Indian Penal Code, meaning you should go and prepare a police.
Got it.
You can go to the State Women's Commission as well. You can also go to the local complaints committee, but the local complaints committee also can only just give a direction or a directive to the organization that terminate this person's employment. So if you are looking for a more severe penalty because you believe you've been harassed a lot more, then you should go to the police or you should go to the court. If you're going to the court, you can prefer a complaint under Section 200 CRPC.
Hmm.
Now, CRPC also has got updated. We have the new law in place.
Mhm.
But having said that, the corresponding section for that, under that, you can go to the court
Okay.
and file a proper complaint there
Mhm.
and seek a redressal. That will be a proper trial. It's not an inquiry. There's a difference between investigation, trial, and inquiry. And as per the Posh Act, you can only inquire. You cannot investigate. You cannot try.
Wow. Okay, that's a learning for me actually, and the difference is there, ma'am. So you were saying about this, right? Like you had a point on there would be both ways, right? Like once you have a complaint from an aggrieved person, there is also someone at the other end defending that the other person. That's also a lawyer,
So
someone's
if
like
it is
you.
an inquiry before IC, lawyers are not encouraged.
Okay.
Both the parties cannot come with lawyers. Even the witnesses cannot come with the lawyers.
Mm-hmm.
There is a specific stipulation to that effect in the act.
Oh.
Okay.
Mhm.
However, it is not an impediment for you to go and seek consultation from one.
Mm. Meaning the person who is being pointed fingers at, that
Not
person.
only just that, I have had complainants coming to me as well.
Okay.
How do I draft a complaint? How do I will my IC listen to what I'm saying? The respondent is at this level. The respondent is well connected. The respondent is director's son and all those things. At that time, they do need advice.
Right.
Because just walking blindfoldedly expecting that the IC will help you, it may not really work out that way in the interest of the complainant.
Okay.
The same thing with respect to the respondent as well as the witnesses.
Mm-hmm. So how does your typical day be like?
My days, I am every day in court.
Okay.
Yeah. So otherwise, as an external member, I do go to companies and conduct the inquiry,
Right.
help them also become compliant to the anti-sexual harassment laws in our country. That also I do. So the starting point is always the policy, developing a policy in place, anti-sexual harassment policy. I always encourage that it should be in alignment along with the employee code of conduct and the business code of conduct. It should not be contradictory to that.
Okay. Advocates like you also have an avenue where they have to, spread the awareness in terms of going to the organizations and telling them about the actual policies which is being
So
done.
once the policy is rolled out, one of the mandates of the law is to conduct an employees training, making them aware that there is a policy like this in place that your organization has adopted, and you being an employee, you have to behave. There is a certain decorum that you need to maintain at workplace. In addition to that, we also do something called as capability training, capability building of the IC members, because most of them are employees. Okay? They don't know how the law works.
Okay.
They have to be trained on how to do an inquiry. Because many of them will go into a wild goose chase. Like I said, this is not an investigation. It's not a trial. It's an inquiry, which means whatever is kept before you, whether it's a complaint, the CCTV footage, any other evidence, or the witnesses who have come forward, that's all that you have in front of you. You have to only examine that and appreciate that.
Okay.
That's all. And there is only 90 days. This is the quickest and the fastest way to resolve whatever problems you're going through.
Right.
Okay. So it's not like a actual trial in a court which can take 3-4 years. This happens in 90 days. You have a report in your hand, and there is an appeal mechanism also to that. You can go to the next level of appeal is as per the Industrial Act. The standing instructions for that, and every district has to appoint their own officer who will be taking care of all the appeals based on this inquiry report. So in Bangalore urban, all the complaints or all the appeals after the inquiry report is been given by IC is been preferred by the Deputy Labor Commissioner.
Okay.
So they have an extra mandate.
Okay. So, ma'am, I want to ask you this from a human point of view. So, this is a very empathetic and passionate kind of work that you would be doing, right? So, in case there is something that which didn't go as per plan, like how you would have wanted in the court, right? If a judgment goes against your this thing, what kind of a toll does it take on you?
Fighting and losing is something I can accept.
Okay.
But what I have seen is there is a genuine case and people just don't want to fight. That is what bothers me. There are forums. So people have their own hesitations. And they have their hesitations are not something that you can easily dismiss because they are very valid.
Mm.
They're like, this one complainant was like, I will not be permitted to step out of my house if something like this has happened. My parents will not support me.
Mm.
They'll never allow me to work ever again because going to work is when all this has happened.
Mm.
They have an excuse now to lock her up, you know. So this is a reality. We are in a patriarchal country, and therefore that is the biggest reason why this act is not gender neutral. As long as we continue to be a patriarchal country, this act also will remain like this, you know. And gender neutrality, I know we keep revisiting this
Right.
again and again. You know, if you do a little research on Google, there are 72 genders, you know.
Oh my God.
So when you say both,
Okay.
it's not both.
Mm.
Okay. Like in our country, there are three genders, right? Man, woman, and transgender person.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Supreme Court has recognized third gender in our country. And that is something that you will not see in several parts of the world. You know, third gender is not recognized. And like I said, 72 genders, which means there are so many possibilities, so many permutations and combinations which are not recognized. So when we talk about gender neutrality, it's not just man and woman, it's everybody, all the 72 of them.
Okay. Humans, just one umbrella.
Yeah, everybody. But the thing is, most of the crimes which are of this nature, you know, sexual harassment, sexual discrimination, it is happening because of a certain sex that you belong to or a certain gender you belong to.
Right.
It's a gender specific crime.
Okay.
Now, in our country, there are several laws which are meant to protect the underserved or the minorities or people who have been ignored for centuries, like the Atrocities Act. They protect SC, ST, OBCs, right? So we do have what we call as affirmative action. In fact, the Posh Act itself is an affirmative action. You know? If you don't make that space, that person belonging to that gender, all the people belonging to that gender will not have an avenue to come forward. You have to create that space for them so that they can go out, do whatever they want, go and study confidently, go to work confidently, come back at any time once the work is done. They should have that freedom. Now, there is another argument that I can think of as to why you need these acts. See, safety is the most bare minimum given thing that you need. Not just women, even men need it. Okay? So, what I'm trying to say is that in war-torn countries, even men are not safe.
Yeah.
And what is the condition of that country? There is no development, there is no employment, no education, no nothing. There's not even food. So, safety is the bare minimum thing. It's a foundation.
Right.
We cannot compromise on it. And the thing is, police cannot be everywhere. Courts cannot be everywhere. So everywhere you need to have some system in place so that locally the matter gets addressed quickly.
What other punishment? Like you said, the extreme is termination.
Termination.
What else could happen to someone who's
so the law has given an opportunity, or there is a clause that says that if the person is proven to be, I mean, sexual harassment has taken place, if it is proven, then a certain amount of salary of that person also can be deducted and given. Okay, interim relief, like for example, when the inquiry is going on, you can allow the complainant to be on a paid leave. Okay, that is possible. And if suppose the company has got branches, you can shift the either the respondent or the complainant to another place so that they are not in the same place. Because it is quite possible that like in one of the inquiries I noticed, the respondent was a very high ranking person. Okay, they cannot suspend him, they cannot immediately terminate him also
because of some other
so we put the complainant on a paid leave pending the inquiry. That's what we did. So these options are there. Okay. A lot of employee code of conducts and business code of conducts, they also have levels of warning. before. And in typically third level of warning, meaning basically termination in a lot of organizations as per their code of conduct. So that liberty is also there in the act. You can follow the policies of the organization as well.
How do someone like who, when you do the inquiry, false, there can be things like false acquisitions and those kind of things also happen. So where do you kind of draw a line during the inquiry and say that uh, this is the decision? I mean, you yourself will get to know, right, at one point of time. So have you ever faced those kind of instances where?
So let me give you how this inquiry really happens. There is a policy in place which works as a guideline. When there is an IC in place, so when a complainant prefers a complaint before the IC, there is 7 days for the IC members to deliberate and decide whether they are going to actually consider this complaint for an inquiry. Okay, when they receive the complaint, they do counsel the complainant as well, and the complainant is offered a choice of conciliation. Do you want to settle with the other side in some way? Okay, this point we are not offering any monetary assurances that he will pay you, you take back the complaint. Doesn't work that way. It is just things like, because there are a lot of things wherein this person has just touched her or said one word and she's willing to accept an apology. If a written apology is possible through conciliation, and if the respondent also agrees to do that, we close the matter there. Okay, the conciliation report is very clear that within 7 days the respondent has to give the apology. There are other things also. One of the complainant had asked us that this respondent should undergo a gender sensitization training with an NGO. We gave him that penalty as a part of conciliation. He went for the training to an NGO that we chose for him. We also gave him an opportunity. You can go to another NGO provided they have a proper course on it and they can give you a letter that you attended that. Okay, and sometimes that also changes, especially when there was a verbal remark. It works because it's all about mindset, your stereotypical way of thinking. It helps them. So conciliation is an option, but it is an option that we first give to the complainant. And if the respondent agrees to conciliation, then only conciliation happens. Otherwise, it does not happen. Like, for example, there was one instant where there were 2 complainants and 1 respondent. So he's the manager for these 2 girls.
Wow.
They both gave an inquiry. They gave an complaint together. We said we cannot accept. This is not a class action suit. You have to give separate complaints. And both there has to be privacy. Funny thing is, she's the witness for the other one is the witness for the other one. So we anyways accepted it. And both of them submitted WhatsApp chats. The accusation is he calls us sweetheart. Okay, and for one girl, we did find the supervisor speaking in a very unprofessional manner. This is not the decorum in the organization. But with respect to the other girl, I examined the screenshots. I said, you please read the 3rd line. What is written there? She read it out and suddenly she stopped. She called her supervisor Yar. I said, if you are keeping a casual decorum, what are you expecting from?
Okay.
Because with respect to the other girl, she was very professional.
Got it.
Okay, there was a very professional way of speaking. And this guy, he believed that these 2 girls are friends. So he ended up calling not only her sweetheart, because he has a very casual, a very friendly relationship with her. He believed, oh, this girl is that guy's friend, or that girl's friend. I can also call her sweetheart. Which she didn't like. She created, she was like, I cannot tolerate this. She preferred a complaint. We allowed her complaint. But we couldn't do that with her.
That's interesting.
Yeah. What I did? In that particular inquiry, I had 2 rounds of sessions with that particular complainant. And this time, with her inquiry, I called her directly, very senior line manager who was a part of the IC. She's a director. I said, she said, yeah, I used to call my supervisor, yeah. I said, okay, You used to calling your managers and supervisors, yeah, please call this director also, yeah.
So like that gets me to this question, like what kind of qualities does a person like you need? Because you said, right, like you need cannot have that confirmation bias. You need to be, it is somewhere imbibed in us, like when we start looking at certain things based on, and it is a conscious decision for us to keep it aside and then look at it objectively. So someone who's looking up to becoming someone like you in that field, what kind of qualities do you think they need to acquire or cultivate? And also a little bit on what is the path for them, like how do they become an advocate like you?
Uh, to become an advocate, you just need to do LLB. Simple. But if you want to become a gender consultant, when and work in the area of anti-sexual harassment laws, helping organizations make more safer place for everybody. It's not just for women, but for everybody.
Hmm.
When you do the employees training on anti-sexual harassment laws, maybe making the women more aware, you may be empowering them, but at the end of the day you are trying to set a certain behavior there, a certain decorum there,
Hmm.
which works well for the company. At the end of the day, if you create a safe working space where there's camaraderie, there is no threat, um, just because you're coming to work, it is a productive place.
Hmm.
It actually appreciates your bottom line, economically speaking.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, when people are interested in becoming consultants in this area, uh, a certain amount of training is required. Okay, because most of it you will learn it on the lot when
Hmm.
you are actually part of inquiries, when you're actually helping organizations become client. You will learn a lot while you're doing it. But it's good to be aware of the laws, and the
Hmm.
laws are changing. There is already a bill for making amendments. They want to strike out the um, period in which a complainant can prefer her complaint. Because right now it's 3 months with an extension of additional 3 months.
Hmm.
They want to make it to 1 year.
Hmm.
Okay? So there are a lot of laws that are coming, a lot of amendments coming. You need to be aware of other avenues also where the complainant can go in case the IC is not accepting the complaint for whatever reason. You need to be aware of all those things. You need to pay attention to judicial precedents also of the chartered courts and the Supreme Court, because all of that is applicable.
Hmm. Hmm.
And they are the ones who have it is the Supreme Court that has set the guidelines for how to analyze and how to assess a false complaint.
Hmm. Hmm.
Okay? You have to educate yourself on principles of natural justice, and you have to literally train yourself to ensure that you're neutral, biased.
Hmm.
Peer pressure, confirmation bias, just repeating what the next person with a high voice is saying.
Hmm.
You have to be objective. You can't just get pressured by people.
Hmm.
Yes, we all come with our biases. I also spoke about my biases,
Yeah.
right? But we have to bring that objectivity to the table because it's not about us,
Hmm.
it's about the other people.
So, I mean, here in this case, like you're saying, right? So, moving forward, that how do they actually find work? So, if someone who's done an LLB and then they are trying to be in this field, right? So, how do they find new work? Do they promote themselves or?
As an advocate, we don't solicit.
Okay.
Okay. But if you're a consultant
Hmm.
out and you're not a practicing advocate, you can solicit. You can look for opportunities online on LinkedIn. That you can become part of networking platforms and seek opportunities there. Primarily, will be the companies which are registered under the Companies Act 1950 who will be interested in seeking your services. Okay. However, many of them look for people with experience.
Hmm.
So it is a good idea to shadow someone for a little while or be attached to NGOs also. That also gives you an opportunity to learn and grow. There's a lot of external members are primarily women who are employed with NGOs because they are working in the area of advocacy for women's rights and women's issues, gender based violence. Those subject matter experts are also
Hmm.
often called as external members, and also they help with consultancy. You can collaborate with people.
Mm-hmm.
Like I do collaborate with trainers who go about doing the employees training, while I am called to do the capacity building or the capability development of the internal companies, because it's a more technical training requiring a background in law. However, it's not an impediment.
Mm.
There is nowhere in the act where it is written you have to be a lawyer to do this.
Okay.
Become a consultant. Or nowhere it is written that you have to be a lawyer to become an external member. However, it is clearly mentioned that you need to have an understanding of the law. You need to be somebody who has experience in women's issues, gender based violence. It's all mentioned in the law.
Mm.
Someone who is going completely with no idea, no perspective on all of these will not be able to help the IC.
Mm.
So that is something you have to be mindful about. Okay, couple of years of experience will also help you, mainly because you need to know how to do an inquiry. It's not something that you can understand by looking at the bare act. You know, it is it's like an art.
Mm-hmm.
Every day is a challenge. Every inquiry, every complaint, different. For me, I've stopped maintaining the number of inquiries I've been a part of, but what I understand is that each inquiry is different from another.
Mm-hmm.
Too many variables.
Okay. So, like any advices that you have for anybody who's been affected, harassed, or anything of that sort? So, to generally for them to reach out to someone like you, is there any, if they have any inhibition or they are not openly bringing it out? Is there anything that you want to tell them so that they can?
I'd be very happy to help any woman in distress. Okay, you can reach out to me through my NGO, Bangalore Legal Aid. We offer 45 minutes of free consultation as well, wherein it will be easier for them to know their rights. If they are in distress, we can support them. Okay, we can give them good guidance.
Okay.
Later on, it is up to them how they want to take it forward. Okay, what avenue they choose, entirely their choice. So we do offer virtual consultations that they can take benefit of. So that will help them. And as a lawyer, I do offer consultations for all kinds of matter, and not just limited to sexual harassment. And as a advocate, we work on both sides. Okay, of course we don't work for both sides together. We can work for either or for a particular complaint or a situation, but that's how it is, for us.
So I really hope that this lets people open up, and then if they are biting their teeth on something, they come openly and talk about it. Thanks a lot, actually, for patiently explaining the concepts of whatever is there, right? Because this is the first time I'm talking to someone of your stature, so I learned a lot of things today, and I hope that the people watching also did take up something in this. So, guys, this the rest of the story. You need to wait for one more week for the next episode. Like, share, and subscribe.
Thank you so much. Thank you.